Good day everyone, so hope you're all doing really well. Today is Xiangling's birthday, which means we can absolutely roast the character and slander her for being the epitome of mid-impact. Now, for some of you that might be shell-shocked at hearing the words Xiangling and mid, well, let me explain a bit. In my personal observations, I've noticed that there is a bit of a trend amongst the more casual side of the Genshin Impact community to realize that a lot of their favorite content creators might have oversold some of the 4-star units in the past, characters like Fischl, Sucrose, especially Xingshu, and we're now at a stage where people are really also even doubting and saying, is Xiangling really that great? Yes, I mean there are the impressive Chinese speedrunners, but not all of us have perfect artifacts or can retry the Abyss a bazillion times or get all the crit rate, crit damage artifact cards in the Abyss. So when it comes to a more realistic perspective, like for the average person in playing Genshin Impact, I would honestly argue, yeah, Xiangling is as mid as they can come. It's an analysis that I did in January in 2022, in which I basically said that Xiangling is tied to Bennett and that the game itself at that point was starting to open up to an extent that if you're a casual player, there are many options beyond just a Xingshu Bennett Xiangling team that you can use to consistently clear and beat the Spiral Abyss. And certainly from my channel, that also covers like C0 content in the past, and I've done a lot of it with a lot of Abyss runs, this has certainly been true, as well as the fact that Xiangling and Bennett are wedded. You can see my cluster analysis on Reddit as proof of this. In any case, here is my Xiangling and the builds I use for my Xiangling, just so that you can criticize me for not knowing what I talk about, which is typically what you'll see. But for the average person, this is what you'd want. You want a fairly decent mix of trying to get some EM, ER, and then crit rate, crit damage to have a all-round build that you can use, and I can promise you this build is good enough to beat the Spiral Abyss using only 4-star characters with 4-star weapons and whatever. I mean, this is such a craze that content creators have, but I've done it and I've also proven this many times on the channel before. But today we'll obviously use our bit of our C6 Raiden, because why not? I mean, we love C6 Raiden, so she's going to be here in the background whilst I show you a bit of gameplay. Again, nothing special here because there is really nothing special to talk about, other than the fact that if I don't play properly, then even with Xingshu's damage reduction, the team, or specifically Raiden being the one taking the field, having the most field time here, will die. For those of you that are keeping up with the background gameplay, you'll notice that Bennett gets his ult a bit quicker, everyone else gets their ult a bit quicker. That's the effect of C6 Raiden, so don't be surprised by that. Okay, so let's get into the Xiangling slander. First up, let's talk a bit about her Pyronado. Now, this is the so-called off-field source of Pyro, the only one in the game, and yes, we know it's got no ICD. There is about a 36-37 frame window in which you can multi-hit big enemies if you can get like double hits on them. Yeah, I know how Pyronado works. I think we all know how it works, but the problem with it is that it's not that good in terms of giving you what you want, and this is the thing. Xiangling requires a lot of ER to make it function. Now, on the surface of it, you might say, well, that's just a build issue and a skill issue, if you want to use that word. But really, what we see currently in the top-end speedruns is that people are just plainly replacing Xiangling with a character like Xinyan or Yanfei, and we do get people with 24 seconds clear on the entire top half with Mualani, Vape and so on, precisely because Xiangling's damage doesn't matter, her pyro application doesn't matter. All of the upsides to using the character do not matter if the 5 stars that are coming out are just that much more competitive. So what we've seen now is that Genshin has moved from, in the past, a reaction kind of based meta, where you had, let's say, Hyper Bloom and all of these crazy reactions taking place, to one where hyper carries are more now the focus. And in that world, a character like Xiangling doesn't really do it, especially with higher HP pools, for the average player. What you want is a good, strong 5-star unit that you can buff up the wazoo, and then once that happens, you can deal a good amount of damage. Now, in that world, why on earth would you want a character like Xiangling and Bennett and Xingshu and Raiden Shogun all dealing or contributing to the damage when you can literally supersede it by using 1 or 2 units? That's the current state, at least, where we are in Genshin Impact. And with this, there is an obvious corollary as well, and that is that if you are in a hypercarry focused state, then you would really want to prioritize units that enable the hypercarries as consistently as possible. In other words, a character like Farina, a character like Shilonen. That is where we're currently at in Genshin Impact, and I think this is very much analogous to Kokomi, which is a character I absolutely love in the game, but it's a character that, once again in 2021 and 2022, I said is a wonderful character. You can do amazing things with Kokomi. I was even known as a Kokomi salesman, and I also predicted quite correctly that at some point in the future, Genshin Impact is going to release more and more units that will encroach into the niche that Kokomi fulfills, and then you're going to effectively replace her because you've got an option if you want off-field Hydro. You've got an option if you want off-field Hydro with healing, or if you want more role consolidation or team survivability, or trying to buff units, etc, etc. And that is what we see. For instance, in the Ayaka teams currently, you're going to run Farina and Shilonen, and you're even going to skip Kazuha because, well, you really don't need grouping with big targets like this, as you can see in the background. And that is entirely the point about all of this. Units that, for instance, like Kokomi and Xiangling, are strong for what they were way back when, and I'll never not acknowledge that. But we're at a state where MiHoYo really wants to focus on bringing in new players, and they really want to ensure that 5-star units are properly 5-star units, that they are distinguished from 4-star characters. And this is very, very interesting because in the older days of Genshin Impact, you could use a combination of 4-star, 5-star, some 4-stars were worth it. But in modern Genshin Impact, you cannot in good faith say that a 4-star only team is going to be even close to being competitive with some of these 5-stars. Even at C0, even at the speedrunning level, when you've got perfect artifacts and you do a bazillion resets to get some good run that you can post on Bilibili, we're at a state where 5-stars are starting to dominate across the board, and that just means that the staple, Fischl, and Bennett and Xingshu that people used to build are perhaps not going to be worth it, except of course for the Imaginarium Theatre, which is a good reason to keep still building characters. But from a purely I just care about DPS and playing the Abyss is the only type of meta content, which I think is very flawed, is a very flawed way of thinking. Yeah, you're definitely the years and days of Xiangling are definitely gone. And I would also dare say that the moment Mavuika releases, she's gonna power creep Xiangling. I don't know what's in Mavuika's kit, but knowing Hoyo and how they tune these Archon characters, Mavuika is definitely gonna bring something to the table where perhaps some of the off-field pyro or something niche that Xiangling's known for is going to be filled by that. In terms of the pyro characters, certainly you've got Linny and Arlecchino that are just miles ahead in terms of damage, so you wouldn't use Xiangling for damage, and it really is only elemental application that's currently a big thing. And if Mavuika is has consistent off-field power application with her E ability, then I'm sorry, Xiangling is literally going to be dead. No more reason to use the character. But that's going to be my prediction. I've been right in the past and I've been terribly wrong as well. So we'll see what happens. To me, it's not about being right or wrong. It's just about engaging and seeing where we're at, because Hoyo can ultimately just do whatever they want. So yeah, let me know what you think down below and whether you agree or not. I assume a lot of people might actually disagree, but hey, it is what it is. Thanks for watching.